The history of Puerto Rico from 1493 to 1897 is a story of exploration, subjugation, colonization, and cultural transformation. It begins with the arrival of the Spanish in 1493. Before the arrival of the Spanish, Puerto Rico was inhabited by the Taino people, an Ararat group with a rich culture and complex social structures. Their society was based mainly on agriculture and fishing, and it also included a developed system of religion and mythology. In 1493, Christopher Columbus, who sailed under the banner of Spain, landed on the island during his second voyage, naming it San Juan Bautista after John the Baptist. He was greeted by the Taino people who called the island Borinquen. These initial interactions between the Spanish and the indigenous people of the island were a getting to know each other and exploration process. It wasn't until several years later that the Spanish officially settled and began to colonize the island. On August 8th of 1508, Juan Ponce de Leon, a lieutenant under Columbus, established the first Spanish settlement called Capara. That same year, he was also chosen by the Spanish crown to lead the conquest and slavery of the Taino Indians for gold mining operations. During this period, a harsh encomienda system was established. This forced labor system put a huge burden on the Taino, and they eventually revolted and went to war with the colonizers. The Taino even burned down Capara, but by that time the Spanish had mostly abandoned the settlement in favor of a nearby port on the coast named Puerto Rico. Eventually the island took the name of Puerto Rico, while this port became San Juan. By 1512, due to pressure by the Catholic Church, the Spanish crown issued laws prohibiting the use of any form of punishment toward the indigenous people. But by that time, the cruelty of the previous system, combined with diseases brought over by the Spanish, drastically reduced the population of the Taino on the island. This reality made it more convenient for Spanish colonization. In the following decades, Spanish settlements would consume the island, eventually turning it into a full-fledged colony. By the 17th century, the Spanish had already consolidated their hold on the island. However, other European powers had their eye on Puerto Rico and were making moves to wrestle it away from Spain. This period saw not only continued European colonization, but also a heavy fortification of the island and the increase of West African slavery. Now, the Spanish had built forts before in the previous century, but in the 17th century, they doubled their efforts in this regard, as the other European powers were getting stronger and attacks against the island were becoming more numerous. To protect against these threats, the Spanish continued to fortify the island, building more forts, but mainly strengthening and expanding others like El Morro and San Cristobal. The construction of El Morro was a lengthy process that spanned several centuries, with multiple expansions and modifications. The original structure was a simple tower and fortification. Over time, it was expanded into the more complex fortress that we see today, with its iconic 6 levels and distinctive shape. The most significant expansions occurred in the 17th century, as the strategic importance of Puerto Rico and the Spanish Empire grew. The Spanish also added Fort San Cristobal to complement El Morro. The construction of the San Cristobal and San Juan actually began in 1634, but it wasn't until the 17th century when it was drastically expanded. San Cristobal is one of the largest fortifications built by the Spanish in the New World. Its design and construction were part of a broader strategy to fortify San Juan, which already included El Morro. And while El Morro was designed to defend against sea attacks, San Cristobal was designed to guard against approaches by land, effectively encircling the city with a massive defense system. Aside from the military fortification to defend the island, the Spanish also focused on the development of the agricultural economy. During this period, the Spanish crown granted contracts known as asientos to various private entities to supply slaves to its colonies. Although some West African slaves were brought to Puerto Rico in the previous century, these contracts drastically increased the number of slaves transported to the island. The 17th century, particularly the latter half, witnessed a substantial rise in the slave trade, as sugar became an increasingly important crop on the island. While specific numbers for Puerto Rico are not readily available, it is clear that thousands of African slaves were forcibly brought to the island throughout the 17th century. This influx had a lasting impact on the demographic, cultural, and social fabric of Puerto Rico. The 18th century saw more of the same as the 17th century in Puerto Rico, as the island became more transformed into an agricultural economy with sugar, coffee, and tobacco becoming primary products. The island also saw a demographic shift in population. The population had become more diverse, composed of people of indigenous, European, African, and mixed ancestry. By the 19th century, Spain had weakened as a colonial power. This reality forced Spain to take a different approach with its colonies, especially in the latter part of the century, as Puerto Rico and Cuba remained its last colonies. This would bring significant events and changes to Puerto Rico. In 1812, Spain adopted the Cadiz Constitution, dividing Spain and its territories into provinces, each with a local corporation or council to promote its prosperity and defend its interests. This granted Puerto Ricans conditional citizenship. It's worth noting that the delegate who fought for Puerto Rico's rights during the enactment of this constitution was Ramon Power, a native-born Puerto Rican who was one of the first to refer to himself as such. In 1815, Spain then issued the Royal Decree of Graces, which encouraged immigration from Spain and non-Spanish European countries, altering the island's demographics further. This decree would be expanded in the following decades and would once again alter the demographic landscape of Puerto Rico. Thousands of families from all regions of Spain, particularly Asturias, Catalonia, Mallorca, and Galicia, Germany, Corsica, Ireland, France, Portugal, the Canary Islands, and other locations, escaping from harsh economic times in Europe and lured by the offer of free land, soon immigrated to Puerto Rico. With these two acts, Spain sought to strengthen Puerto Rico's allegiance to Spain and make them less likely to revolt for independence. However, this was short-lived, as the Cadiz Constitution was revoked and Puerto Rico was once again ruled by the unrestricted power of the Spanish monarch. Soon, Puerto Rico was faced with slave revolts, social unrest, and calls for independence. One of the most significant events that occurred on the island in the 19th century was on September 23, 1868. Hundreds of men and women in the town of Lares, stricken by poverty and politically estranged from Spain, revolted against Spanish rule, seeking independence. This event became known as El Grito de Lares, or the Cry of Lares, and was planned by a group led by Dr. Ramon Emeterio Betances. The uprising was quickly put down by Spanish authorities. However, after the revolt, political and social reforms occurred. Two of the most important reforms include the abolition of slavery and the Autonomic Charter of 1897. On March 22, 1873, the Spanish National Assembly officially abolished slavery in Puerto Rico, and in 1897, Puerto Rico gained political autonomy from Spain. However, the political autonomy would become short-lived, as a new power was making its presence known in what would culminate into the Spanish-American War. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Help us to spread this video by sharing. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more videos.